I'm not going to do the podium thing. I'm going to walk around. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thanks, y'all, for coming. I mean, you could be seeing Grumpy Cat right now, so it means a lot that you're here. I know you could be doing anything else, including Grumpy Cat, so thanks for being here tonight. This is like Mecca to me. I said that a few days ago when I was in Elliott Bay, but this is Mecca. This is awesome. And I'm super, done a couple of Portland events before, but this is my first Powell's event. So give it up for Powell's. Love it here. So last night at, what was that city called? Seattle. Last night, this gal, Eva, came. Let's see. I might have to sit at the podium because my thing's not working here. One of the themes we'll be talking about tonight is how digital technology will fail you, whereas paper never lets you down. Maybe this whole thing's frozen. Hang on a sec. You're going to see behind the scenes here. There we go. Okay, perfect. So this is Eva, and Eva came to the talk in Seattle last night, and Eva was very brave. I think Eva, I forget how old Eva is, but not very old. And she came up to the microphone in front of this big crowd, and she said, what time do you usually journalize? And I was like, journalize? And everyone laughed, you know. I was like, journalize, that's like the coolest word ever. That's like my new favorite verb, journalize. And we were all joking and stuff, so I wrote in her book last night, The Journalizer. Of course, then I actually, because I was curious, I actually looked up the word journalize. It is a word. Journalize, it's just a dated word. They used to use it in like, a couple hundred years ago when you were like doing the books or like you were keeping track of the accounts. They would use the word journalize. Enter notes or information in a journal or account book. As in, I would gladly journalize some of my proceedings. So I think we should bring this word back because I like it, journalize. So we'll be talking about journalizing a little bit later. If you don't know me, if you wandered in off the street, this is what I'm first was known for. These things are called newspaper blackout poems. And what I do is I take an article from the newspaper, I pick out the box, I box the words that I like, and I kind of string them into a funny phrase or a saying. And when I'm done, I black out everything I don't need. This is what it looks like when I'm done. Sort of looks like if the CIA did haiku. I am from Ohio, but I live in Austin now, and so this is my ode to Texas. In Texas, there is nothing but Texas. This one's called Overheard on the Titanic. I mean, yes, we're sinking, but the music is exceptional. This is called What is Marriage? Marriage is two people in love standing in the same bathroom. So a lot of those poems were collected in my first book, Newspaper Blackout. How many people have read Newspaper Blackout? 2 hands, great. Oh, 4 hands than 2 tonight, excellent. This is obviously a very sophisticated and handsome crowd tonight. Newspaper Blackout was a book of poetry, so of course I did not quit my day job when it came out, but one of the cool things that happened when Newspaper Blackout came out was I got to go around and talk to people about poetry and art, creativity, and that kind of thing. And one of the things I got to do is talk to some community college students about what they should be doing with their lives, which terrified me at the time. And so I wrote a talk called How to Steal Like an Artist. And it was a list of 10 things that I wished I had known when I was first starting out. How many people have read Steal Like an Artist? Okay, excellent. And so Steal Like an Artist came out, and that did all right. And so pretty soon people wanted a sequel to that book, which the main thing I got asked after Steal Like an Artist came out was, how did you do this? Like, how did you get known for your work? How did you use the internet to kind of put this book out and gain an audience and that kind of stuff. And so those are all questions about self-promotion. And I'm like any other artsy-fartsy guy. I think of myself as being above self-promotion, right? But so I wrote a book about self-promotion. Show Your Work is a book about self-promotion for people who hate the very idea of self-promotion. And so one of the things that unites these books, there is a point to this, is both of those books, Steal Like an Artist and Show Your Work, started in my journals. This is actually the original list for Steal Like an Artist that I doodled in my journal a couple of days before I gave the talk in a hotel room. A little bit different than what it finally ended up being, but the heart of my creative work really happens in journals, and a lot of these books start in journals. These are the thumbnails for Show Your Work when I was kind of working on the layout, what the book was going to look like. Some of the stuff in the books comes straight from my journals, like this is a sentence, don't steal the style, steal the thinking behind the style. That was straight from a notebook, went right into the book. I'm kind of an analog guy. When I'm not blacking out the newspaper, I like to cut stuff out of the newspaper. And so this is the Michael Lewis quote that I cut out of the paper that made its way right into Show Your Work. And I do all kinds of crazy things when I'm trying to get ideas for books. I make these weird little mind maps and just random crazy person stuff in there. So journaling has been part of my creative process for pretty much as long as I've been trying to make art and writing. And it really has been, I think I did the math, I've been keeping a journal for almost 20 years now. And it really started in middle school, in Mrs. Neff's English class. This is my 7th grade notebook that Mrs. Neff made us keep. What Mrs. Neff would do is every day in English class we would come in and we would have to go over to the milk crate, pull our composition book out, sit down at our desk, and Mrs. Neff would have either a prompt for writing or she would have a poem on the board that we would have to copy. This is Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven in my beautiful middle school cursive over there. But it's kind of funny because I realized just a couple of weeks ago that the Steal Like an Artist journal is basically just Mrs. Neff's course in a notebook. Like, there's prompts for you to fill out, and there's copying exercises, and it's pretty much the same thing that Mrs. Neff taught me, which is the value of kind of keeping a daily journal and having prompted exercises, which I don't know what that says about my intellectual development, but there you have it. So after I kept the journal in Mrs. Neff's class, I started keeping my own composition book for my everyday life, and I used it for really highbrow activities, like copying cheat codes for Mortal Kombat video games, and copying down Green Day lyrics. So yeah, so I kept a composition book and notebooks when I was in high school, and then when I got to college, I had a creative writing professor who made us keep what he called a day book. And the idea of a day book is that you carry it around with you all day, and you have this notebook that you pull out, and you get used to embarrassing yourself at dinner, having an idea and writing it in front of your friends, But the idea of having this kind of notebook that you carry around all the time so you don't lose any ideas, that's what I learned from Stephen Bauer in college. And then as time went on, I kind of got back into drawing and art again, and so my notebooks got a lot more visual. This is a map that I did of John Berger's Ways of Seeing, which is one of my favorite books. And it's kind of funny looking back on this, because I realized I was illustrating other people's books. It was kind of like practice in illustrating my own later on. And now my notebooks are I have young children, so my brain is very fragmented all the time. So my notebooks kind of reflect that. They got very collage-y, and I cut a lot of stuff out of magazines and newspapers, and I save, this is a tour notebook, so it's got my Gold Bond medicated powder sticker, and my ibuprofen bottle label, you know, real highbrow stuff. And I still do like crazy diagrams, and I like to cut stuff out of the newspaper. And I also like to get those little, when I'm on tour, I like to get those little cheesy maps they give you at the concierge stand in the hotel. And then what I'll do is I'll track my route. This is a Philadelphia map, and a bunch of random stuff I saw was in Philadelphia. And this is just a random page with the blackout poem and a bunch of other wild stuff on it. So one of the biggest questions, because I've used journals so much, and I've posted images of my journals here and there on my blog and shared them, people are always asking me like, so what kind of journal do you use, man? Do you use a Moleskine? Do you use field notes? Like, what is it? And so I finally decided I'll just make one, because the capitalist in me always thinks about business. I'll just sell them a journal. So when my publisher Workman, they were kind of the ones that said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a journal? And I was like, well, people actually ask me about journals all the time. And so it became this kind of fun exercise in thinking, like, if there was a journal that I did, what was the journal that I wished I had had when I was starting out with my journal? It's the same question as Feel Like an Artist. So the next step really was thinking about how I used my previous journals, which I just explained, but then looking at the journals of other people that inspire me. So for the rest of the talk, which shouldn't take too long, thankfully, mercifully, I'd like to show you some of the pages of people's journals that inspired the Feel Like an Artist journal.